Well, it's the first podcast that we're recording in 2025. Not the first one that's aired in 2025, but the first one that we are recording in the new year.
I have my New Year's shirt on.
That's the New Year's shirt?
It's a New Year's shirt because it has sparkles on it.
What makes that different than 2024's sparkly shirts?
Because it's the new year, and so then you just make it fit the occasion.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Fair enough.
Yes.
I'm wearing my New Year's shirt because it's blue.
Are you now?
Yeah. And
what makes that different than the shirt you wore, say, I don't know, yesterday,
nothing.
Day before?
Nothing. It's blue. So I wear it in 2024, wear it in 2025. If it's still in decent shape, I'll wear it in 2026. And far beyond.
Listen, so our podcast is mainly audio, but we have one visual presence, and that's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I stress over that. I think more about the YouTube. Yes, I know that you know. I think more about the YouTube because I think it's just I'm not even a TV person, but just knowing how do people that are, let's say, the anchors for television shows, do they ever wear the same thing?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
But
sometimes.
How? So anyway,
especially guys.
Guys. I'm not even asking about guys.
Yeah,
we don't care. Can get by.
We don't care.
No, and so I think about that, like, but I wore that in the podcast like 2 weeks ago, so I probably shouldn't wear it now. But here's the thing: I only have so many pieces of clothing, and most of them are a decade old. And they're just going to have to be what they are. So we're going to just continue to recycle. This one, though, is a newer one. I think I've had it 2 years, and I love it because it sparkles.
Hey, I still have T-shirts in my closet that I wore in college.
Wow.
And still pull them out on occasion.
Sure. They're comfy.
Super comfy at this point, yeah.
You got them broke in now.
My kids look at them like they're so faded and everything. They're like, man, how old is that? I'm like, well, about 4 times older than you are.
Yep.
So.
Older than you, my darling. Older than you. So happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. You make any New Year's resolutions?
I don't do resolutions.
Me either.
I don't because I know me and I'll break them.
I will too. So that is, in a sense, kind of my New Year's resolution is that there will be no New Year's resolutions.
No, you're consistent though.
I am with that.
Yeah. No New Year's resolutions. I do think it's intriguing though. Through the years, people have said, they ask the Lord for a word.
I remember you've done that before.
I've only done it one other year, and it was going into 24. And I was a little surprised, the word, but it really did apply to the year.
It was a rough year and a rough word, so they kind of fit.
And it's kind of odd. I don't even know how to explain it. All I know is I was like, Lord, what do I expect in this year? And I don't want to get too far ahead. So that's why sometimes I don't like the word or the resolution or anything, because I'm kind of thinking, well, then you're going to paint the whole year that way, because we humans kind of do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to do that because I know me and I know how I process things. But that particular time when I was talking to him about things, it was like, okay. And I was like, okay, I don't know why that it was just kind of a discouraging word. And then the year had so many good things, but it had some doozies
discouraging
in it.
Things too.
Some doozies.
Yeah, it did.
Do you not go for a word though? You don't ask him?
I never have.
Just not interested or hadn't thought about it?
I've never thought about it. And actually last year was the first time that I heard somebody do that. I think I maybe have heard that people have done that before, but just like whatever.
You're welcome.
And then you did that. I'm like, okay, cool. Good for you. I think it's just kind of my personality and my temperament to just roll with whatever comes.
Agreed.
So I'm like, there's probably a word of the day that it changes all the time. So no, I've never done that. But did you do that again?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So many things.
Can you share this word?
I can share this word. This word is...
This one you can.
Expectant.
Okay.
That's the word. Expectant. Now, the... I think it's a greeting card company, Dayspring.
Yeah.
You've heard of Dayspring, right?
Yep.
And I used to work for Zondervan bookstores way, way back in the day. And we always carried those cards. They're beautiful. They have online presence like everybody else, and they were doing these words if you took a quiz. And I'm not into that, but I thought I'm a little bit intrigued to see what kind of questions they ask. So I went through it. Their word for me was abide.
Okay.
And I had already gotten the word expectant from the Lord. So I thought, well, Lord, that just goes hand in hand. You can't be expectant if you're not abiding with him. I mean, I guess you could, but what are your expectations if you're not abiding? So if you want to pick either of those words, but expectant is the one that I think he's given.
Wow. That's kind of cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I could see how that would absolutely fit. 2024's word fit the year in a lot of ways. And, I think we're expecting him to do some pretty cool things in 2025. No idea what that might be, at least for me, but I'm expectant that he will do something because he's always up to something.
Always.
And that's one of the fun things of walking with him is when you've walked with him for a long enough period of time, you know that he's always up to something. And sometimes you have no idea what it is. Sometimes it doesn't seem to make any sort of sense. Right. But you keep walking with him and you realize, okay, he's doing something. And now we just kind of wait and see what that next something is going to be. Now, I say that I've never done a word of the year like that, where I've asked the Lord for a word, like that kind of thing. However, there have been words that have kind of come out of a year or that have kind of come out of a season. Like when we were contemplating moving from Chicago, where my wife had lived her entire life, and when I'd lived there for 25 years, we had asked the Lord for clarity and for unity.
Yes.
Right. And so there may be things like that where that was kind of two words, or those were two words that were very appropriate for that season. At other times, I feel like there was a season where just the word intentionality kept coming up over and over and over again, whether that was in my time with the Lord or just in life. Like, I need to be intentional with my time, with my choices, with all these types of things. And so there have been words, I feel like, for a season, but I've never tied one to a year per se.
I think I've resisted for years just because of the whole resolution thing and not wanting to do that, not wanting to paste or paint a whole year under one word. But to see the Lord's consistency through a particular word, I found intriguing last year. So I thought, might as well try. It started with contemplating what Mary was told by the angel when she was going to have Jesus. And her response in Luke 1, verse 38, she said, I am the Lord's servant. May it be to me as you have said. And I thought, what surrender when she had absolutely no clue what was about to happen.
Right.
I find myself in 2025, I have absolutely no clue what's going to happen. But I'm the Lord's servant, and I want whatever he wants. So that's where I think he started the work in my mind and heart, and then moved into look to me, be expectant, ask me, follow me. And then he's been really helping me think through, when is it okay to test him?
Okay.
Do you know the answer?
Well, I can only think of...
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I can only think of one time in Scripture where he says, go ahead and put me to the test, and that has to do with giving.
There it is. So we're in a season where income has changed.
Yeah,
I know your family
us too.
Briggs's family. Income has changed, and yet he's working all of this through what he's teaching me. Don't stop being a giving person.
Yeah.
Watch where I'm working, and when I give you opportunity, go for it. And I'm like, yes, fully aware, more so than I am,
sure,
of our situation. So to trust him in that. And then I went to that passage you're talking about, Malachi, to just read through it again and what he tells us about, you can test me, but in this area, and then won't I do it?
Yeah. And have you seen him do any of that yet?
He's given me opportunity, and I've been trying to be very listening to what those opportunities are. And they may not be like a mission per se. It could just be you see somebody with a need, and you're able, because you've got this amount to go ahead and apply toward that. And so it's only been a few days into the new year, and I have tried in a couple, 3 different instances already to say, "Oh, okay, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
The May family can be alongside you for that." And I know there will be more opportunities. I was also thinking about how our church has given 30% to missions over the
Wow.
last year.
That's cool.
30%.
That's big. That's cool.
And just our pastor's heart to encourage all of us, hey, listen, give as unto the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
like to the local church and to other places. And just all of these different things that he's saying, okay, Don Ray, are you listening to me? Because I'm teaching you.
Yeah.
And so this is where I think that the expectant word is so important.
And I think that is so cool for you, like for me to sit here and to watch what you're doing and what your family is doing. Like, I look expectantly at how he's going to show up in your guys' life and how he's going to show up in your life. Like, I'm excited to kind of have this front row seat to see what he may do with you guys. Because when we lost our jobs in 2024, I was expectant that he was going to do something. Mm-hmm. And he did for me in terms of work and employment. And, we kind of, like you guys, made the same sort of commitment. We're going to continue to give. We're going to continue to, do all the things that we were doing before. And we're going to just trust the Lord to meet the need and do whatever. And we've been watching him do it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things is like, all right, Lord, I don't know how you're going to do it, but we expect that you will because you say you will. So let's see how he does. And then to watch him provide opportunities, whether it's to make a little extra income or whatever that is, it's been really cool to see how he is, in a sense, showing up and meeting those needs.
And the challenge is as you look about what you spend your money on. So if your income has changed, then obviously your expenditures that are extra change to reevaluate all the extra. I mean, some obviously just automatic just can't do it. Yet, whatever you want to call that, envelope system or any kind of budgeting system, there's stuff that can go that has become normative to how you run your household or whatever, and you have to start to rethink. Okay, Lord, is that something that's good, bad, indifferent, honoring you, dishonoring you?
Yeah.
Ask those questions and see what he says. I have a hard time, though, sometimes because if he tells me no and I don't want to let go, then, you're faced again with, okay, Lord, am I going to obey you or am I going to obey me? And you'd think that's easy.
You would think, but it's not.
Why is that so hard?
Because the human heart wants what it wants. It just does.
I don't like
that. It wants what it wants.
I don't like that.
No, I know. I totally get that. But at the same time, it is kind of fun to ask him what needs to go and those things that are super clear to be able to let that go and to then, after a little while, realize, I don't necessarily miss that. There's a little bit of a sense even of freedom with that. And then at other things where, it could be a thing that it's like an optional thing. Like in our family, for example, my son takes drum lessons.
Sure.
And are we going to cancel drum lessons? Because that's an optional thing.
Sure.
Our family does martial arts. All 4 of us do that. Are we going to cancel that? The optional thing, we could, but we're like, Lord, until you've made it clear that we're going to drop those things. Like, I want the kids to be able to continue to do that kind of thing. I want them to do that. So I'm like, I'm going to expectantly pray for and wait upon your provision for us to be able to do those things. And he has.
Isn't that
so
something?
It's so cool to watch that and to see that.
So cool. When you're arguing with yourself, I think it's a good place to be because at least you're sensitive to what the Spirit is telling you. Mm-hmm. It's a frustrating place to be in the flesh, wanting to respond appropriately and obediently as his kid. But the other day in 2 Corinthians 5, I was like, yes, this is me, where you're always confident and you know that as long as we're at home in the body, that we're away from the Lord and we live by faith, not by sight, and we're confident, I say, and would prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord so that we make it our goal to please him, whether we're at home in the body or away from it. But this whole passage in 2 Corinthians 5 at the beginning, the first 10 verses, is talking about that tension of the flesh.
Yeah.
And how as long as you're in this body, you are going to be wrestling with the flesh. And it's a constant surrender. And he's just Paul's so articulate through there to go, this is why you're burdened, that he uses that word. This is why you're groaning. This is why the tension is there. It's very real. You're not abnormal just because you're wrestling with sin or you're wrestling with I want over what God wants. But if we're not wrestling, then I think we've given up.
I think that's one of the things that is so cool about the Christian life is as we learn to wrestle and hopefully learn to wrestle well and wrestle better. I wrestled in junior high and part of high school.
Oh, that's
and
right.
the more you wrestle, the better you get at wrestling. And so
Sure.
I think there's an element of learning, to as we wrestle with the Lord, we learn to recognize him moving. We learn to recognize his voice better. We have a greater sensitivity to what he's doing and how he is moving, and a deeper intimacy with him than we maybe would have had otherwise. And so I love those seasons of wrestling in some ways.
I was
as hard
going to
as
say,
they are
really?
in others.
You love them?
As hard as they are in others, because wrestling practice was really hard.
Sure.
It hurt sometimes.
Uh-huh.
It hurt a lot of the time. But at the same time, you got stronger and you got better. And I think as we wrestle with the Lord and walk with him, our faith gets stronger and our relationship with him gets better.
Well, it's not a resolution for you. It's not a word for you. But as you head into this new year, and we're in it now. We're right in the middle of January. Where are you spiritually? What are some of the things that are on your heart and mind?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me, and I'm looking forward to how this not only plays out in my own life, but also the life of our church and our life group and Sunday school class and all that, is our church has really decided that as a church body, as a church family, we're going to try and take a journey all the way through the entire Bible together.
Nice.
Challenging everybody to read from Genesis to Revelation.
Following a plan?
And following a plan.
Okay.
And there's an abbreviated plan for those who don't feel like they can, read every word. But that's one of my things. One of my goals is I'm going to try and get all the way through. I've done it a few times over the years, but it's been several years since I've done that. So looking forward to doing that. And one of the things that I like about it, doing that in community, is the accountability that's going to come with it. Because when I don't have that accountability, it's real easy, I think, especially in like the book of Numbers, to just say, I'm out, I'm tapping out. But I think the built-in accountability of doing that as a church body and as a family, and then in life group and all of that, I'm expecting that to pay dividends. There's the word expectant again. Expectant for there to be dividends in my own walk with the Lord, and then what he does in our faith community.
That's going to be epic. I cannot wait to hear how that goes. Especially you're talking about Leviticus or Numbers and Leviticus and all of those Old Testament books. Man, I started, I don't think it was 23. No, it was 22. And my friend and I said, we're going to do this. I got way behind at some point because I got so weighed down with the Old Testament. And I was like, can I have some Galatians, please? A little Ephesians? Because I was reading chronologically.
Okay.
So
you were doing like Genesis to Job and back to the Pentateuch. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And when you get into some of the, it shows you how much Jesus did for us on the cross.
Oh, yeah.
The grace, the payment of sin, it shows you that as you look at how things played out in the Old Testament, the old sacrificial system, the things that, Jesus fulfilled when he fulfilled the law.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But my heart just got weighed down in the Old Testament. I was like, I just can't.
Yeah. One of the things that, and you know about this, that I think is also going to help me with this is not just that built-in accountability of life group, but my pastor and I are also doing a Through the Bible into Your podcast.
Oh, nice.
And so just 52 of them. You know, we're going to go weekly through this. But that means I can't fall behind.
Oh.
Because, in fact, I have to be ahead.
That's ultimate accountability.
That is hard.
Oh.
Because like we're doing right now,
Yes.
there are cameras and there are microphones. Yep. And if I don't stay up, like I'm going to be exposed.
Mm-hmm,
So, yeah, I've got to do that.
Does that mean that you're going to keep the beard from now until the end of that video series?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, no?
Although
you could change it up?
It could be a lot longer by the time we get to Revelation.
Well,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
It could be.
You going Duck Dynasty on me?
Or it could be. I doubt that. I doubt that. But I don't know. You never know. I've never gone Duck Dynasty before. That might be a first.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to. So thinking about the new year, expect it. Do you ever go into a new year though, and melancholy hits you?
Sure. Yeah, and I think there's two reasons for me that has happened as I look back at my life. One, and this is like the lesser of the two, is I used to live years ago in a place where it was damp and gray and dreary.
That's real.
For months and months on end.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something about that seasonal affective disorder. I don't think I really had that much, but there's just something about when you're in that for a long period of time, we're like, oh man, I'm just so tired of this. And, you know, we were a little bit further north, and so the days got a lot shorter.
Yes.
And, you know, you'd be in darkness for hours and hours and hours and hours.
That's true.
I'd leave the house in the morning and it was dark. I'd come home at night. It was dark. Like
cold.
I felt like, and cold and kind of damp and wet, and just felt like I didn't see sun for so long. And so I think that played a small part in that. The other is just, you know, certain seasons of life, the challenges that the Lord allows us to face at times. You know, sometimes everything's coming up roses, and other times it's just a hard season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know why. I think every year you're coming off the holidays and I am thinking, I'm going to make it this year. I'm going to make it through the first week of January and not have any of the melancholy. And then if I don't get through that first week and I hit the melancholy, even if it's just for a day, I'm like, oh man, I thought I was going to make it. This year, same thing happened. Made it about 6 days in. All of a sudden, boom, fine. But you sit even in that with the Lord and just, he knows. I keep thinking about the psalm that says, is it Psalm 139? He knows what's on your mind, a word on your tongue before you even speak it. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Like, you already know what I'm thinking. You know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it because he wants us to share our hearts and our lives with him. And so I just started getting it all out, and it does help. It does help. And then to get back into the routine, I think therein lies the other problem.
Yes.
Is I love the lack of routine until all of a sudden you kind of feel like you don't have.
Like disoriented.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay.
The purpose, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So much, and I don't know if your life is this way, but so much of my life has been so structured and scheduled that when that goes out the window for a week or two, what am I supposed to be doing now?
I know.
I feel like there's pressure of stuff that I should be doing and stuff that I know is coming. So I'm like, I need to be doing that.
Isn't that weird, though? Yeah. Because, like, the Lord gives you the rest. He gives you the time away. And I always I'm learning to try to enjoy that and be grateful for it, which I am grateful because so much of the year is structured and go. And yet, toward the end of it, I'm like, I think it's because I would like to continue in that. And I would like to not continue in that. Yeah. So it must be like the tide, as the tide's coming in and going out, like that tension in that moment of, okay, Lord, just show me. And again, he took me back, like today when I was talking to him about it, he took me back to what has my instruction been to you since, was it June, July? What has my instruction been on? And I'm like, serve me today. And he goes, I'm not changing.
Yeah.
I'm not. Serve me today. And that somehow, it sounds so simple, but it somehow brings things into perspective. And you realize, okay, then what I'm doing today with purpose to look for you and serve you, serve my family, friends, whatever it is, then that is enough because that's what you've asked of me.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, as you're listening, as you're watching, has there been a New Year's resolution that you made this year? Or maybe like me, you've said, no New Year's resolutions. Can't keep them anyway. Or maybe like Dawn, you've got a word of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Would you share your word or your resolution with us?
We'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, it makes it so much more fun when we're doing this together. So whether you're listening on an audio platform or if you're on our YouTube channel, you have ways to interact with us, and we would love to hear from you. I got something I can tell you now. You can go to DawnandStevePlus.com.
Yes.
There is a way to connect with us that way. You can also connect with us through any of the podcast platforms, whether you're on iHeartRadio or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Yes, and Podbean. That's another one. That's a platform that we use, as well as YouTube. So you're just looking for Dawn and Steve Plus.
And thanks for joining us today. Hope that you will like and subscribe on all those platforms that you just talked about there. And thanks for being our plus one.